Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I am Ariana.
And I'm Cami. It's in our hearts to expand your mind and reality
and elevate the consciousness of the world,
one conversation at a time. Hey, lady. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. Our topic for today is going to be communication and how we were taught to communicate, what have we unlearned, nonverbal communication, etc. I know that we've had some little talks on this, but definitely coming up with, man, I was not taught to communicate very effectively. And how has this affected us, in our lives? So I know there was a lot of indirect communication that I learned growing up, and everything needed to sort of be intuited, like, don't tell about this, don't tell about that. I wonder what they want. Right? Just intuiting people's needs rather than asking them directly, like, what would you want? Right. And that can be a trigger for me even today when people are very direct and directly ask for what they want, because I'll feel like, how dare you ask for that? No, that's not okay. I feel like I'm put in an imposition if I have to say no to that. Like a polite person, a respectful person wouldn't even ask that. That's not true. It's not true. But it's something that I've definitely noticed. So where have I rejected the direct communicator? So where has it done me a service in improving my intuitive skills, but also added to making up stories that absolutely are not true, because I'm too afraid to ask somebody directly for what it is, that they would like, and too afraid to speak my needs and my wants very clearly. So I know we've had some other discussions, and I've definitely had some opportunities lately to flex those muscles. I'm not entirely proud of how that has come out, but it's a journey. It's a journey. I'm learning. I'm still learning. So there's definitely a lot of unlearning that has happened, and it takes practice to learn new styles of communication and more effective communication. So let's hear from you some of your experiences.
Well, I think it's fair to say that we both agreed that we wanted to talk about this topic after sharing our childhood experiences in episode 1. And what comes up for me while you're talking is, I was taught with a very boomer generation saying, my mother in particular, but my parents saying children should be seen and not heard. And my mother, I have 2 boys who are teenagers now, but as they were growing up, she would send me newspaper clippings from, the syndicated psychotherapist, blah, 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 still saying that stuff and printing it in newspapers, and just horrifying me because it was so invalidating as a kid, where I would want to share my insights. And, for anyone who's seen my bio or listened to episode 1, as a kid, similar to Cami, we were both very intuitive, very perceptive. I'm definitely an indigo child. And they just didn't want to hear anything I had to say. So as an adult, having to teach myself that, yes, people want to hear me, was very difficult. Especially in romantic relationship, where I just so much wanted to be loved and make sure that I didn't upset the partner, and don't want him to leave because I want to be loved and prove my validation and my value through this relationship. So afraid to say anything. much less share needs or things that didn't work for me. It had to get really, really bad. And then I'd explode into what appeared to be psychotic because I'd been holding it in for so long that it was just like this huge combustion that would just go, right. And learning the safety in communication, or how to communicate with people in a healthy way, and know when it's not healthy, that their response is not healthy. Because I had a lot of that in my household, where my mother in particular was screaming at me all the time, a lot of screaming. And so again, it was like cowering, like I better not say anything wrong or we're going to get in trouble. And that's probably like one of the biggest pieces for me, was learning to speak up for myself, and that it was safe. And if someone rejected me based on my needs, then they were not for me, and that was okay, rather than making it, I must not have any value, or there's something wrong with me if what I say elicits a response that's negative.
Absolutely. And have you found that it's something that has taken an awful lot of practice to get better at? I mean, that's been my experience. It's not something that changes overnight, as much as I know it in here, to actually live it and experience it and exercise it and try it out on different people. Yeah. Right. In different ways. That's what I have found. So how long have you been trying to practice this?
First, I think the hardest part is to realize that there's something wrong first. Knowing that however you've been programmed by your parents or by the significant adults in your life, even just recognizing that there might be a different way, that whatever you have adopted as normal may not be normal. So that's just like one of the biggest parts of the journey. And then from there, trying to figure out, well, so what is healthy for me, or what works for me, and what's safe and what's right, Yeah, I mean, and it's not perfect. Last night was it last night? 2 nights ago, I hosted a presentation where I was in a library conference room, and I had to set up a laptop to deliver the Zoom call we were all going to watch onto the projector screen in the conference room of this library. And as Cami knows, I am not technologically the most intelligent person on the planet. But I figured I'd be able to figure it out. Well, I get there, and it was one stressful thing after another. The first person I spoke to, her husband just died, and she wanted my compassion and attention, and no one else was there yet. Then the librarian yelled at me because I was late. Then she let me in. Then more people started coming, and it was everyone like, what can I do? And how can I help? And I'm just like, let me just do this. And just give me a second. And by the end, I was so stressed out that I snapped. I snapped at some people, and this was supposed to be, fun and joyful. We were going to watch this Zoom that was spiritual based, and I'm snapping at people. I was horrible. And I have had a lot of trouble sort of processing, where did I lose it? What could I have done differently? Ongoing. It's ongoing.
It is an ongoing process. I mean, we may snap back faster than we used to, but we still have, this is work. This is not something where you just snap your fingers or you take a magic pill and everything is better. This journey, this self-discovery, this bettering yourself, this finding a new way. I mean, once you know better, you're responsible to do better, right? So that is a big piece of it, that learning and recognizing this doesn't work. This isn't healthy. This doesn't feel good to me, and it definitely doesn't feel good to other people. How can I do better and keep trying to do better and keep trying to do better without like stabbing ourselves in the heart every time? We need to have grace and compassion for ourselves as well, and forgive ourselves. I mean, we've both done John Newton's work, and we've seen the power of forgiveness, and that is one of the most powerful, I'd call it a frequency band, one of the most powerful frequency bands that I've ever encountered, and applying it to ourselves, probably first and foremost. That
absolutely.
I find I'm able to make better progress when I'm not beating myself up, right?
Right. Thank you for reminding me that, because I'm still in the middle of beating myself up for the other night.
I had some things that we shared that I've definitely been through in the past couple of days as well, that I found to be really challenging, empowering and challenging at the same time. And it all has to do with communication and boundaries, and communicating in a different way, speaking needs in a way that is heard. And the way that I did it in the past couple of days, I would prefer to have had those lessons show up differently. But they showed up in the way that they showed up, and I'm not at a point yet where I'm grateful, but hopefully I will get there. One of the things that it's definitely along these lines. I'm feeling like I need to share it. It's I know it's related, although I may not be able to draw the conclusion immediately. Right. So I talked about the surgery that I had, right, when I was 3. And there is also sort of an ingrained shame and guilt and self-abandonment aspect that goes into communication, I think. And when I woke up from surgery, my mom wasn't there. And they dealt with things a little bit differently, right? So there was somebody there. And she said, your mom went down to the cafeteria. Well, I mean, I'm 3 years old. My mom's not there. And like, there wasn't anybody with me. It was somebody that happened to be with, I think another child that was in a bed, like, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away, 10, 20 feet away. I don't know. The memories are, sort of vague. I just know that she wasn't there, and that I felt abandoned. Right. Yeah. And that definitely set up some patterns for me with some extreme independence. I don't need you. I can do this on my own, when I really do need people. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that is a pattern that I have worked an awful lot on throughout the years, through the events that happened during the surgery, as well as, what happened after surgery. Also, when I shared that, I had this experience where I sort of was awake, and my tummy was tickling, and I went to grab for my stomach, and they pulled my hands away. And that I saw them doing the surgery. The response was, no, that didn't happen. I'm sure that didn't happen. So there was that extreme invalidation and mistrust of, my own experience. Mm-hmm. Right. So while I did have some validation, there was definitely also some invalidation that was not welcome. It didn't feel good. It definitely didn't feel good. And while I did have my grandfather, which, like, thank God for him, he really was an earth angel. Everybody is a teacher in their own way, for sure. But my input, the things that I had to say, were an awful lot for most people in my family. Like, they just didn't know how to deal with it. My grandfather listened to just about everything and fielded all of my questions with almost an inhuman patience.
That's amazing. You're so blessed that you had that.
So blessed. Yes.
Really, because I got a lot of because I said so. And again, children should be seen and not heard. And so those were some big communication topics that were hard for me. Because I said so didn't work for me. I was in need of a reason. And if you clearly didn't have a reason, well, then I was going to do what I wanted to do, and you wouldn't know about it. was really like, that was 6-year-old me. So, and that wasn't healthy either, because I was taught to lie, because either they couldn't handle what was coming out of my mouth, they didn't want to hear it, or they didn't give me good reasons to why I could not do what I thought I should be able to do. A lot of really weird layers there. But kind of what's popping for me is the knowing what not to say and knowing what people can hear is a really interesting sort of subcategory under communication. Because I was thinking about it, if you have a statement to say to someone, please make sure you shut the door when you leave. There's thousands of ways that you could say that. You could be irritated because they always leave the door open and you're already halfway to the car. This is my teenage son. And he knows there's nobody else in the house, and he'll leave it wide open. I have to turn around and be like, are you kidding me? No one else is in the house. Shut the door. That's not the kindest way to say it, but it's another way of saying it. And then when you get into deeper, bigger topics, like working with a client and you see something from a past life that needs to be cleared, can this person hear that there are past lives? Are they ready to receive this kind of information? Do I tell them or not? And that takes a higher level of awareness. If your girlfriend's boyfriend is cheating on her and you know it and you saw him, can she receive it, or will she hate you because you're making up lies about her boyfriend and clearly you must be jealous of her? Or is she going to be grateful because she's already suspecting that he's up to something? It's a very interesting topic, knowing what not to say and knowing what people can receive.
That is a big one that definitely takes a lot of practice. And I will be the first to say that I ask my team, my higher self, whatever, and thankfully have developed a pretty close relationship and constant conversation that goes on, almost constant conversation. And it's pretty fast. Like, okay, what are they available to hear? What should I say? Tell me the right words, please give me the right words to help this individual right now. Right. And it's a different dynamic with those that are in my inner circle, because I'm a little bit more raw and human with them for sure. With clients, there's definitely, you kind of like test the waters a little bit, like, are you familiar with the term, blah, blah, blah. And like, you kind of like, it's like throwing pebbles to kind of like test, and almost energetically, I will like throw things in people's fields to like feel the response before I actually even say the words. So there's sometimes where I'm sitting kind of like this, and I sort of breathe into it and whatever, and give me a second, I'm working on something. In order to sort of center, and there's always that conversation going on. And especially if I'm having a conversation with that person's higher self, that's going on as well. Like, give me just a second to form the right words, because there's a lot of dialogue going on right now. Give me a second to interpret. And more often than not, it lands okay, but that is definitely something that has been practiced over the years. And that's a big one. And I see my daughter going through that, because she has amazing insight, and she'll throw it out and it may land really, really wrong. Oversharing things, just like the experiences that I had. And, I'm telling her, you have to feel into it. Let's exercise this, where you're getting the information, what's okay to share, what's not okay to share. Listen to that. When you get a no, don't tell them that, or tone it down a little bit or whatever. Thankfully, she is excellent at self-advocating. So that's another area where she shines, where it took me years to come. I'm still working on that, like big time. So she's better than I ever was at self-advocating, thank God. But I watch her go through this as well, where she gets these insights that are pretty freaking accurate about, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. She'll just like rattle it off. Well, I just don't understand why this and this and this is going on. And she'll just be like, bah, bah, bah. well, because this and this and this, and, your parents treated you like this, and, or you had this thing with your dad, or, you had, that was from a past life, blah, blah. She'll just like start rattling stuff off. And I'm like,
cool. That's so cool. And you're doing such a great job in encouraging her and guiding her in that way. So you have a lucky daughter.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And hopefully, we do the best that we can. And it is probably the hardest for her because she is the closest to me.
Yeah.
So she knows me better than anybody. Yeah. And so she definitely sees me at my worst. And I may be the hardest on her because I know her potential. I see her gifts and I want to encourage them. And I definitely need to be more gentle with her at times because I can be a little bit, almost militaristic, especially if she's, off in
La La Land. Yeah.
La La Land, other worlds or whatever. Like I need you back here. But yeah, definitely that building that discernment of what to say and when to say it. How do I want to word this? I mean, clearly you learned by saying what wasn't well received, right? And you learned to shut up, and then you started learning to speak, and then speak more, and then speak more. So this has been a process.
Absolutely.
What tools do you use, or do you just use like an internal gauge to determine what to share with people and when to share it?
Well, I feel like I operate a little bit differently than you do, although it's probably the same end result where because I wouldn't say that I'm strong in clairaudient, not strong hearing psychically. But I am claircognizant. So I know but I don't know how I know. So I really think that my gift of claircognizant is what I rely on. And so I'll just sort of throw to myself or my higher self the question, and I have to go with whatever pops into my head as a knowing, as a, for example, I had a client and who's a regular, and she came to me with some pretty heavy stuff going on. And at the end of the session, she wanted to know what I picked up on. She wanted to know what I intuited. She wanted to know what was cleared. She had a lot of questions. And I just kept getting that if I told her what I cleared, she would actually attach to it so much that it would undo it, and to not tell her anything. And she did not like that. It was very hard to find a way to carefully word it. I found out later that she went to a mutual friend and complained about it. And thankfully, that person was insightful enough to basically explain to her exactly what I said to her, that you're going to put it back in, you're going to undo the work, you're going to attach to it too much. I was very grateful that this person was insightful enough to explain to her instead of aligning and agreeing and getting upset with her. That was really hard, but that is, again, like knowing what not to say. You gotta, I could have told her, and then she wouldn't have been upset with me, but she more likely than not would have reattached to some, if not all, of what we had worked on. So, sometimes in this work, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, right?
This is true.
Just to go with your gut and know you're doing the best you can, and wish them well on their journey. If they come back, great. If they don't, great. It's just their choice.
That comes back to working through the abandonment and betrayal, and self-abandonment, self-betrayal. And if we stick to what we know is right and what we feel is right, and being okay with other people's discomfort.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's definitely part of it, especially when you're working with people to any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, healers typically, more often than not, are traumatized from their childhood, and we're people pleasers to the core. So those are two huge hurdles that we have to get over while we are attempting to help other people.
Yeah. because enabling and just making people happy is not love. Sometimes love isn't comfortable.
Right.
When you really, really want the best for somebody, it's not always making them happy. Some of the things that you've been talking about, this is probably, it's a whole other tangent.
Yeah.
But something that I've definitely been working through, like the motherline wound, the sisterhood wound, these wounds that we all tend to work through, and they can be really, really deep. The motherhood wound, especially being rejected for who you are rather than what you do. If it's being rejected by the male frequency, it's a do sort of pattern, what you do to prove yourself to, you know what I'm saying? It's not who you are. So when you're rejected by the mother, it's a deeper wounding because you're being rejected for who you are. And we have these sisterhood wounds that are at play. So you were talking about this mutual friend, right? Who thankfully backed up and intuited, and she absolutely understood and explained to this lady why it was that, you know, that it wasn't shared with her, rather than aligning with the lady, right? I'm sure we've all had those experiences where somebody betrays you by, you know, going behind your back for something or doing something. Well, I would have done it differently, but you know what I'm saying? That whole thing. And I feel like I am definitely seeing more and more adult women relationships where we empower one another rather than trying to dig at each other and disempower each other and get one up and stab in the back and the claws and all of the little girl games that tend to be played that I don't have a lot of patience for anymore. And I just think that we can do better, and we just need to recognize that, hey, you know what? We're adults now and we have permission to grow up and do things differently. We don't have to do it that way anymore. And it's that wounded little girl that is, you know, let's invite her to the party. Let's bring her up. You know what I'm saying? Let's bring her back home so that we are not having to deal with a lot of these, you know, unconscious relationship wounding behaviors. I'm not sure exactly how else to word that.
Right. It's, yeah, when the inner child is the one responding in an adult situation, it could be like a tsunami running through your life. I've done that. where the inner child is triggered so badly that that you are not speaking like your adult self, and the other person, if they know you well, is like, who are you even being, right? If this isn't even you, are you okay? And going in and rescuing that inner child, reparenting, there's a million shadow terms for that kind of work, but going in and rescuing that child and soothing those wounds creates such a difference in the relationships around you and in how you communicate when normally you might have been triggered. Now those triggers aren't so intense, and you can operate from the adult version of you rather than the 6-year-old who's having a temper tantrum, right? Which is great.
Absolutely. I'm actually like feeling like my heart is feeling expanded, and I'm feeling like an emotional response kind of coming up as you're talking about it, because I've seen such amazing growth in myself and other people, and doing this work in rescuing these inner aspects, whether you call it, you know, soul retrieval or parts work or whatever label you slap on it. And again, as you said, there are so many different ways of doing this. I almost want to ask about some of the different approaches that you take, definitely not to put you on the spot. For me, I don't know that I would feel comfortable with that question, because it's intuitive, and there's so many different approaches that I have learned. It's almost like I have this toolbox, and I will ask, you know, what is right for this person in this moment, and it may be a combination of things that I have learned or something else entirely that will drop in. And I'm being told this is what's appropriate right now in this situation, right? In order to facilitate this child in coming back. So it could be one of myriad of approaches or something that nobody's ever heard of before. Definitely I haven't heard of.
Well, every once in a while when we're working, we make it up on the fly, and it's something we've never done before. You and I experienced that together just recently. So,
yeah.
right?
I loved that.
Grandfather, that was so cool.
That was amazing.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of ways. One of my favorite ways that I'll share with our audience that you can do at home, without a session, without facilitation. And what I tell my clients is, for you to go home and do the work on your own is great. And when you hit a wall, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And it's always helpful to work with a facilitator, but you can work at home as well. There's going to be areas where the trauma is so deep or so hidden from you that you really will benefit from working with a facilitator to get to those deeper pieces. But with this one particular technique, I just have people basically go into a meditation, and I'll guide them through it when it comes to see me. And once you know it, it's pretty simple to do on your own, to go and visit your childhood home. Your mind, just close your eyes and see yourself as an adult walking up to the front door of that house. Walking through the door, you may see your parents fighting the way they used to always fight in the kitchen or whatever. You may see, you may sense that there are other people there. Just acknowledge that to yourself and know they can't see the adult version of you. You're walking through the house and you go to your bedroom when you were a kid and open the door, and in the room is your child. Typically, I have people visualize the version of themselves from when they were 5, 6, 7 years old, and spend some time talking to the child, discussing whatever trauma is still sort of creating emotional response. There may be something that still upsets the person from when they were little, and be the parent that you never had. Talking to the child, really listening to what the child has to say. Usually the client's bawling by now. Hug the child, tell them you're never going to leave them again, and that you're going to be there to protect them as the adult. And then I have them walk out of the house with the child holding their hand and reminding them that no one in the house can see you. You're just leaving. They're too busy fighting. They're too busy throwing knives at each other, whatever they were doing back then. And just leave the house with your child. And then, just to make the whole situation lighter, I'll usually have them ask the child, do you want to go for an ice cream? Let's go for an ice cream, because from now on, our life is going to be fun. So whatever happened before, we're kind of erasing it and being the compassionate, fun, listening, attentive adult to our own child version.
That is a really, really good one. And I'm sure that it is super effective. And I almost believe we can rewrite history with doing some things like that. It's definitely, along the lines of quantum healing. And I've seen some things that I definitely cannot explain in people remembering their history totally differently, or remembering the time that this angel showed up and whispered to them and told them some things, and maybe that was a version of them, right? In doing this work, the way that it sort of rewrites the brain, I guess what I'm saying is healing is possible. That they say you can't rewrite history, but there's some practices that.
Well, that whole saying is based on the theory that time and space are linear, right? And it's not. And maybe we should do a whole talk on quantum theory, because it's just and how we've seen it affect clients and ourselves. But when you go into the quantum field or the quantum mechanics, everything is happening simultaneously. And so as you change these pieces, you are changing your current reality, as well as you're changing the trajectory of your destiny. And I think I've heard John Newton say this: if the Titanic left port, and from leaving port, they just changed their trajectory by half a degree, by the time they got to the iceberg, they'd have missed it by a mile. So as we do different kinds of work, especially in the quantum field, clearing these pieces, we're literally changing the trajectory of our lives and eliminating these negative aspects that were creating challenges, blocks, negativity in our world, and bringing us to these different points of dis-ease, health issues, relationship issues, money issues, living condition issues. And we can change all of that. It doesn't, nothing is set in stone. And even though, like I read tarot cards for people, I do readings for people, I really bring in more of like clearing work while stuff is coming up in the reading. And I tell them, this reading isn't going to help you, but the clearing work will, because you can change your life. And it doesn't matter what I say today, tomorrow, this whole thing could change. So, I love doing readings for people. It's super fun, but I lean more into the spiritual advisor area and doing clearing work on the negative stuff that does come up in the reading. That was a lot. Sorry.
No, I think it's fantastic. For me, it's like a discharge in the frequency where I'll feel it and it'll be like really active. Like, ooh, there's an emotional charge on that I can feel in my body, and let's do some clearing and stuff and sort of dissipate it, because it's that charge that gets buried and whatever that actually creates physical maladies and accidents and things along those lines, because things are already at play and going on way before they come into physicality. And so that's a whole other topic.
That leads us into another piece of communication that I wanted to cover. I hope we're not running out of time, but the communication that you have with your body and the communication that you have with your intuition. So, as we talk about the negative emotions or the negative energies trapped in our body, that can create diseases or chronic pain, things of that nature. And learning to actually listen to your body. There's so many people that are so disconnected from their body that they don't even have the awareness. I'll be working on someone on my table and lay my hands on them, and they'll be like, oh, that ankle's really tender. Well, I have a whole intake sheet. What hurts on your body? What trauma have you had? It's like 15 questions. And I'm like, what? You didn't mention that on your intake sheet. It's the right ankle? Okay. Oh yeah, I've just had that for years, so I don't even think about it anymore.
Super common.
It is, right?
It's super common. And I've done that myself. I've definitely done that. I know that I will say that my daughter saved my life, even though we almost died together and bringing her into this world. I had no connection with my body. I was brilliant. Mm-hmm. But I had zero connection with my body, zero sense of emotions. I couldn't even name the emotions that I was experiencing, right? And so it's been a journey since then. So even though I had this massive knowledge, even in the healing arena and stuff like that, I was so completely cut off from my body that I could definitely provide guidance. This was going on, right? This was happening, but the ability to like feel into people's bodies, I couldn't feel into my own body. So how could I feel into other people's bodies? Like now I proxy people's bodies and I'm able to manipulate stuff and feel stuff because I have a way better relationship with my body and an understanding of emotions. And it's, through watching my daughter, it's like, oh, watching the emotions travel through her body and how she dealt with them. Like, oh, that's how that works, right? I didn't know. I didn't, and there was some counseling involved and a lot of, self-work and, things that have gone into this process, but I can resonate with that. I can understand that. I can feel that when I encounter somebody who's like that. I'm like, I remember what that feels like.
Mhm.
So where do we start, right?
Yeah, I remember I was engaged at age 22 and married for the first time. And I remember planning that wedding, and I was so excited, of course, as any young bride might be. But the closer we got to the actual wedding date, the more my stomach was like in knots. And I thought, I kept reading in the bridal magazines, oh, premarital jitters, blah, blah. Okay, so that must be what that is. Now, I had nobody teaching me about intuition, nobody teaching me that the body is actually speaking to you and trying to help you. Pain is actually the body saying, hey, pay attention. There's something going on. And that's really what my body was trying to do, is tell me, no, don't do this. And I married him. And the next day I found out he was doing cocaine through the whole reception. I had no idea that he did cocaine. And it went downhill from there fast. And I did not listen to my intuition because I didn't know what it was at the time.
This is how we get ourselves into these situations, and why it is so important to listen to our bodies. I mean, there's so many reasons. I wanted to bring up, I recently encountered this book. I want to say Michael J. Lincoln. I told you about it. Messages from the Body. I mean, there are
a lot of books out there. Louise Hay has a very
many. Yeah. Hers is really simple. And then we've learned different techniques and correspondences with John Newton. He does things a little bit differently. And it's very, very simplified with Louise Hay. And I have a bunch of different books.
I encourage my clients to get that book on Kindle or whatever platform they use, because it's so basic. It's easy to use. The manual book that I use, I think, is similar to the one you're talking about. It's like a huge textbook with a lot of great information in it. But for people just starting out and wanting to start to learn, if my right elbow hurts, what does that mean? You can at least start with Louise Hay and then kind of explore from there if it resonates with you. Because there are definitely people out there that are more along lines of like body whisperer. Like I understand what it means when your left ankle hurts.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, it's such a new way of thinking because it doesn't really mesh with
telepathy.
Correct. It's a new way of thinking. It's definitely a new way of thinking. I know you and I have both seen things that modern medicine would consider to be miracles that they don't like to talk about, and all through these various healing modalities, and a lot of it using what are you feeling in your body and where, and let's sort of track that.
What is it? Let's clear it.
And it's just sometimes awareness is healing, and it's absolutely amazing. And I love doing this work. I love teaching people about it so that they can do their own, and empowering them to do their own work, because I don't want anybody relying on me. I don't want to be in that position. I want to enable people to do it themselves, because they can. And they need to believe in themselves that they can, that it's the body that heals itself. We just need to create an environment where the body is able to do that, and we help it along in order to do that.
Yeah. It's more about holding space and having the person get out of the way so the body can do what it's trying to do.
Yeah, it does. It just wants to heal. Even I'm feeling like I probably shouldn't go too far down that track.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about with, potential censorship and stuff. I want to tread a little bit lightly with that. Just because I'm getting a little bit of a careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Don't make claims. Yeah. All I'm saying is that all healing is self-healing, and it's there are ways to enable yourself to make that happen.
Yeah. I tell all my clients, your body is smarter than you and me put together.
Straight up.
Listen to it.
Yes. We just need to listen. And that's an ongoing journey for sure. That's whew, man, me in this body, we've definitely had a journey, and it's definitely still ongoing. It is not something that I have mastered. I feel like I was plopped down into this thing, and I'm like, how do you drive this thing? I don't get it. This did not come with an instruction manual. So, I've definitely researched the instruction manuals and trying to figure out how this stuff works to try to figure it out and help other people do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What other things along the lines of conversation do you feel like
communication? Well, I had written down intuitive communication. Is that a topic? Is that a subtopic?
What I'm getting from that is when I have conversations with people, I feel like our conversations are going on multiple levels. So it's multidimensional. It's not just a conversation. There's a frequency that's hitting things in the body as we go back and forth. There's an energetic involvement. There's, conversations with each other's higher selves. And a lot of times, especially if I feel like I have past life interactions with people, I'll be talking to them and they're there physically present. And I'm observing like our astral bodies, like doing some other, like interacting differently, right? Like having a whole other level of conversation. So is that kind of what you're talking about? And telepathy. Oh, telepathy is so much fun when I find people that I can have telepathic communication with, and that they don't take offense of not hearing from me physically or virtually for, however long, because I'm shouting out like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All of that. And, oh God, there was something else at the tip of my tongue. I'm so sorry. Knowing what people are really saying. When their mouth is saying one thing, but energetically or their body or something is really saying something else. And knowing what people are really, really up to. The most obvious is when they're lying. I've always been aware of this weird thing that I have where I can hear sort of in the timbre or the frequency of the words coming out. I can tell if it's a lie or not. So when I was a kid, to lie to my mom, I would actually train myself to fully believe whatever scenario that I was going to tell her. So I would go through a whole visualization process of what the lie entailed. Like, where were you last night? Where were you up until 10 o'clock last night? And I would see it in my head, and I would really play it, and I would put myself there and would create this world and this reality so that when I said it, I knew 100% that it sounded real because I believed it so much.
That is definitely some learning ground that you had there, right? And where that can be used for good.
But all of that because if I told the truth, I would be severely punished, right?
Yeah, I don't. What's that?
I'm not proud that that's what I went through, but very, very interesting that I came up with that, I don't know, at 12 years old.
And I'm wondering who else, of people listening absolutely resonate with what you're sharing, because it wasn't okay for them to share honestly. They had to make stuff up in order to survive. We do what we have to do in our family of origin in order to survive. We need to freaking forgive ourselves for it. It's all along the path, right? It teaches us something. It's how do we then take it and use it for good instead of using it to hurt people? We don't need to continue to hurt people with these skills that we've developed in our toxic families of origin. We can use these skills to better the world and other people in some way in order to contribute to society. We don't need to continue the chaotic spin.
Right. Absolutely.
So thank you for being on your path and actually using your gifts for good, for the most part, when you're conscious.
You're so funny. Oh, we all do our best, right?
Yeah, well, we all do our best, right? And that's why I said for the most part, because I have no idea what your perceived missteps may be, but that's just all they are. It's just missteps, okay? So we re-aim and we try again. There is no failure, right? We're all on a journey. It's just like sinning. To sin actually means to miss the mark. That's all it means.
Wow.
We're not, condemned to hell and damnation and hellfire and brimstone and all of that because we made a misstep. We make a note, we re-aim, and we try again.
Yeah, some of the stuff that we've covered today is really like pointing to sort of a be your own guru kind of a topic, empowering yourself, listening to your own intuition, continuing to move forward, knowing that, yes, you're going to have teachers, but to sort of put them in on a pedestal or in such a position of power that you're not even listening to your own inner guidance is not the best choice.
Inadvisable, I'd say.
Well, yeah, but it's still a choice. You can choose it if you want to. And there's a lot of people that are like that want to just follow and not be responsible for thinking, as we've seen.
I was going to say, you just pinpointed it. I was like, I would really like to talk about that. How people like to give away their power.
Yeah. Be like another topic.
Yeah.
Next time.
I agree.
Communication that we want to cover today.
We've covered a lot of different forms of communication and ways that we were taught not to communicate. And I feel like, I don't know that there's really anybody that has it mastered. Right?
No, I think whenever there's a difficult situation where you need to address something, it's great to bounce it off someone who you think is a healthy person in your life. This is what's going on. This is what I'm thinking of saying. What do you think about that? It's really, I find my worst days are when I go rogue and just operate from, whatever trigger response is up for me in that moment. That's when things go bad.
What would you advise somebody who feels like they don't have anybody to bounce stuff off of, or they don't have anybody to offer that for them?
Ooh, I would say, short of paying somebody to talk to, one of the tools I've tried to use is to journal about it, write it down, and then wait till tomorrow. Now, I've been stubborn enough and angry enough at somebody where I'll do that process, and come hell or high water tomorrow, I'm going to make sure I'm still mad enough to do what I said I was going to do in the first place and behave badly and say whatever it was that I wanted to say in the way that I wanted to say it, even if it's toxic. So, that's old me prior to a lot of work, but that's me being totally honest that you can do that to yourself, and you're going to have to, pay the price for that. You know what I mean?
One way or another,
I don't know. Do you have a better option for someone that maybe doesn't have anybody to bounce it off of? By yourself or whatever, but if you don't have that connection, it might not work.
Yeah. So I was going to suggest finding community even on social media. I have my pros and cons with that. I know that there are so many supportive communities available, and that people are not alone, even if you think you're alone. My mind and my heart also went to people who may be in a situation situation, like maybe they're in a toxic relationship and they truly, truly feel alone and they may be almost in danger, right? Are those people going to find this podcast and be able to listen to it? Or might somebody share it with them? I don't know. There's just so many resources available for that. My answer would be different for somebody that's in a situation like that. I know of a number of podcasts and practitioners, a lot of free material for people to recognize behavior patterns so that you can recognize the situation that you're in and start to come back to you. Yeah. Especially when you have become sort of a shell of yourself due to circumstances in relationship, and my heart goes out. Definitely had some of those experiences myself. But in other situations where you have tools at your disposal, at least the internet, definitely look to social media for supportive communities for people who may be going through what you're going through, or other spiritual communities. There's so many of them out there, and maybe we can find a handful of them and put them in the comments. Maybe that's something that we could do. Any other? I have
noticed also on the social media, at least I've seen it in Facebook groups in particular. I don't know all of the social medias have this, but you can post a question to the group anonymously, so no one knows, and it'll either say anonymous or it'll just say group member, and so nobody will know who you are or what your name is or how to contact you, and you can just read all the responses and see what resonates with you. So that's a really, really great suggestion. Great resource that we have that you and I, Cami, didn't have when we were, younger people trying to figure it out.
We didn't. And we
had a library.
We did.
Go to the library. You had to get your mom to drive to the library and then go through the card catalog and see if maybe they had a book that pertained to some crazy nonsense you were looking for.
And random synchronicities. So I definitely appreciate our way showers who came before us, and those that were able to support us, even though it was definitely a little bit more challenging to find. I am hugely encouraged by the amount of support that is available today, and so readily available, and the amount of free resources that are available to people to help facilitate this journey, because it can be really, really confusing.
Awesome. So,
any other things that you can think of that we want to touch on before we close this episode on communication?
I think we've communicated a lot on communication today. And there's probably a ton more we could talk about, but we could always have communication number 2 at some later date.
Sure. Well, and I'm looking at the clock and it is 3:33:33. So I'm feeling like it's a good time to close up.
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Once again, we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Conscious Conversations. We hope that the insights and wisdom shared here have resonated with you and sparked new pathways of growth and transformation.
We value your presence and engagement, and we invite you to be an active part of our conscious community. Your comments, questions, and shares contribute to the collective expansion of knowledge and awareness.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave a comment or share it with someone who might benefit from these transformative conversations. Together, we can create ripples of positive change.
We also offer personalized sessions and resources to support you on your journey of personal growth and spiritual healing. Visit our websites listed in the comments section to explore the various energetic healing modalities and sessions we provide.
Remember, conscious growth is a continuous journey, and we're honored to walk this path with you. Subscribe to our podcast to stay connected and never miss an episode as we explore new dimensions of consciousness and elevate the collective vibration.
Join us next time for another enlightening episode of Conscious Conversations. Until then, keep expanding your mind and embracing the infinite possibilities that lie within.